Right. Okay. Yep. So, welcome to the Cybernaut podcast. It's a beautiful Saturday here in sunny UK, and Wales and England coming together with the mighty Robin Pierce from Starburst magazine fame. And where else are you from, Robin?
Well, I started out more years ago than I care to remember. I was blogging on MySpace, and that was a very long time ago. I was offered to start writing for Zone magazine, which was being printed out of Northampton at that point, and I became their head writer. I was there for about 4 years. Then I decided to start my own website. Zone and I parted company. They were going down a different route to where I wanted to go. And Starburst, a magazine that I'd been reading since its first issue in early '78, came back into existence, and thought I'd throw my hat in there, and I've been with them for the past 10 years.
That's
So that's basically me up to date.
that's quite an amazing, like, prestigious journey, like, to go on. So, when you said that, was it Gore magazine? They were
Zone,
going in a Gore zone. They were
yeah.
going in a slightly different direction. What was it that like made you think about moving on to something else? I'm not familiar with that magazine. So what did they focus on?
Well, it started off as a British kind of Fangoria. I mean, we would cover the films that the other film magazines just wouldn't touch with a barge pole. Some hardcore horror. I got to
Like demons and films like that, like Italian horror, that sort of stuff.
Yes, and of course there was a lot of what they call torture porn at the time. Films like Saw and Hostel, and I
Yeah.
got an amazing series of opportunities, which I never once thought would happen, to interview some truly amazing people within the field, and we're talking about heavy hitters here. I got to do an interview with Greg Nicotero, for example, the makeup guy behind The Walking Dead and several really high-level horror movies. I got to talk to Kane Hodder, Jason Voorhees himself,
Yeah,
Rob
yeah.
Zombie. Ooh, who else did I speak to? Oh, I did some Buffy people as well. Um,
Yeah, I
but in the end,
recently, I recently spoke with Armin Shimmerman.
oh
I feel,
right,
I feel like maybe I don't know. Like I left the podcast thinking, oh no, have I offended him like in any way? I got very conscious about the last question that I asked him, and I haven't stopped obsessing about it since. I said, when you're out and about, do you does anybody ever mistake you for the actor? I can't remember his name. The guy from Breaking Bad.
yeah.
Not the main guy. The chap who plays Mike. Because they look quite similar. And I kind of I've been obsessing over it ever since I left. And I had like a burning question to ask him, because Armin Shimmerman played this character, the caddy on Seinfeld in
Okay,
that
I've
car.
never seen Seinfeld, believe it
Right.
or not.
Yeah, I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. And when it's on Amazon Prime for free, I just watch it constantly on repeat. Um, and he's in that in one episode. It's a really good episode. I asked him about it. I said, "Can you cast your mind back to this point? What was it like working on Seinfeld?" And he said, "Actually, that was like one of the worst experiences of my career."
Oh,
And I
that's
thought,
that's always a problem, though, isn't it? When you're talking to people and you don't know what the good experiences are, and you might take them down a road that they really don't want to go.
yeah, definitely.
Uh,
I
was he
felt
okay
like
with you
that.
after that?
Yeah, he was. He was. Yeah, he's an absolute professional, like, and gentleman. But I was very conscious that I was like, oh no, I'm not being the kind of um, the the person or the fan or the the interviewer or the questionee who that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So for me in my mind, it all felt like it was going completely wrong. But I mean, maybe that could just be my perception of how it went.
I had two that went like that. The first, I was speaking to Kane Hodder. Now, I'd spoken to Kane a few times before, and I was told,
was he?
well,
Was he
it was by
massive?
phone.
Oh, okay.
And I was told before the interview, don't mention Freddy versus Jason.
Okay.
Because it's a sore point. He didn't play Jason in that one, and he'd been tasked by New Line of keeping the Jason character alive for quite a while. And I said, yeah, okay, fine. So we spoke, and the interview was going great, and we talked about Jason, we talked about Hatchet, which is why I was interviewing him in the first place. And towards the end of the interview, he said, so what did you think of Freddy versus Jason? And I thought, I'm not even supposed to mention this to you. I mean, I said, well, I've seen it, didn't like it much because it didn't really count. That's exactly the answer I wanted. Then the second one, I was interviewing Charisma Carpenter post Buffy, and it was for the role she had in the first Expendables film. And we went on at length about Buffy. And this is about 11 years ago. And she told me then about how Joss Whedon had been on set with her. We actually broke that story 11 years ago because at that point, there was talk of Joss Whedon producing and directing a Wonder Woman movie. And Charisma Carpenter was lobbying hard to be cast as Wonder Woman. And I asked her, well, what happened there? Because, what happened? And she said, I was going to get it, but Joss Whedon blackballed me. And the whole thing about her becoming pregnant and being dropped from Angel, and then him cooling off and inviting her back for the episode where she was a ghost, but you didn't know until the end to give her a proper send off because he'd calmed himself down. I mean, we broke that back then. Then after a while, I started getting some interviews. There was one for a film, the remake of Piranha, Piranha 3D.
Yeah.
And it was okay, all right. Who am I talking to? And he mentioned a name that I had never seen before. Perhaps it's best that I don't mention the name. And I looked on the IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, and all I could find under this name was porn. And I thought, I am not a prude by any means, but it's a road I didn't really want to go down. But I'd committed to doing the interview before I found out what I was getting into, because I can be stupid like that.
Was this an actor or a director?
It was an actress.
An actress.
Yes. And I thought, right, this is her first mainstream sort of movie. Maybe the story is that she's trying to get out of one industry and into the other. Maybe that's where I can go, because if you're going anywhere near the porn industry, I feel you're either going to become judged as being a leering pervert or, judgmental. And I don't want to be either. So we opened up the interview and I put some questions, and it turned out that she actually liked her career in that industry. And I thought, I'm getting in deeper and deeper here. This is not getting any better. So I turned the questioning and tried to do it like tongue in cheek, because I'd noticed that she actually she was bright, she was intelligent, she was very, very with it, very quick with a quip. Not at all what I would have expected. And we turned it into a kind of a tongue-in-cheek look at a day on set, and there were some double entendres there, and it turned out really, really well. I was happy with it, she was happy with it, the magazine were happy with it. Then the following month I was given an assignment, and I recognized the name because on the IMDb listing for the month before, this was the first one's usual stablemate, and she was not doing anything mainstream. And I thought, nah, I got away with it once by the skin of my teeth. I haven't, written for this long and tried to get myself to this position to throw it away by being, the guy who writes for porn magazines. And if that was the direction they wanted to go in, then that was fair enough. But I didn't want to go down that route myself. So I basically left and went my own way for a few months, and then joined up with Starburst magazine. So that's the story there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So, did you did you struggle with that change at any point? Like, were you taking a risk in going from having that sort of familiar sort of systems that you were used to and people that you were used to working with, to like breaking away from that because that issue didn't sit right with you, like morally, and then did it feel like a big risk at the time?
It wasn't really a big risk because it wasn't my main job. It was something that I did evenings and weekends.
Okay.
The
But you were aware that like you were trying to.
I knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
And my biggest
Because you were trying
regret
to prove
about it,
something. Mm.
because the magazine, after I left, and I'm not attributing any kind of grandiosity to myself on this, the magazine lasted one issue after I'd left, and then it tanked.
Okay.
So I was very much one of the last rats to leave a sinking ship in that respect.
So
But
good
my biggest regret was every writer wants his readership. And I had, on social media, I had people following my MySpace, and I felt that I was leaving a good audience. I didn't know what I was going to do, but when I left, I had done everything that I had initially set out to do. I'd been in print, I'd become a head writer, I'd spoken to people within the industry, I'd reviewed a few films, a few DVDs, I'd done a lot of CD reviews, I'd written features, retro features, and all that kind of thing. So I was leaving satisfied, but I didn't like leaving the readership. And I didn't for a second think that my writing was done. I just thought I'd do it independently and keep MySpace going, because that's what it was at that point. It was a blogging site. I remember discussing with a friend of mine and Steve, my son, that I considered MySpace to be basically the nearest we'll ever get to a robinpierce.com. And he said, well, you're not working with Gorezone anymore. Why don't you use the time and make a robinpierce.com?
Yeah.
And, it was like, nah, I can't do that. No. And then, because he'd put the germ of an idea in my head, I looked into domain names. Well, robinpierce.com was gone anyway, but I could have a .co.uk. And I looked into site hosting, and I started planning for a soft launch on Halloween, as a matter of fact. Halloween 2010 is when I launched it. And about 4 months after that, Starburst came back, and I was able to use what I had written already for both Gorezone and on my website as basically, the show and tell. And I was taken on by them.
Like an online portfolio.
Exactly. If I was making movies, that would be the show reel.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very similar thing to what I'm trying to achieve with Cybernaut. I also have a personal Wix site that I'm currently I'm doing a lot at the minute, so it's taking a lot of time to build different sites and do a full-time job and look after a family.
Yeah.
So spinning all these plates, but I feel that a year or two from now, the whole internet side of things and the Cybernaut project will be where I want it to be.
Yeah.
So
I have been where you are, and it takes a lot of nerve and a lot of perseverance. I've had people come up to me and ask me, how do you put a website together and how do you launch it? And I've had two people who've come up to me and said, yeah, I want to pick your brain because I want to make a website and I want it to be bigger and better than yours.
Right, okay.
There's the arrogance of youth. Excuse me. There's the arrogance of youth right there, because I'm not in competition with anybody. I do what I want to do on my website. I don't compare it against anybody else's. I my plans for the website can change for it daily. At the moment, I'm planning to put the spotlight on a certain part of it and concentrate on that while I wait for cinemas to open so I can do some film reviewing. But both those people, they launched their own websites and they lasted a year. So, don't go in thinking, well, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to be bigger and better. I'm going to do everything better than you, old man. Longevity, it's not a race. It's not a race. And if you compare yourself to other people, you're either going to be an absolute jerk and think you're better than anybody, or you're never going to be satisfied. So I don't bother with it.
Yeah, definitely. Like I see this as a really long-term project. Like I'm just in December I'll be 40, and so I think it's a perfect time to like get this started. And then
There is no better time, because
Yeah.
when I started started taking writing seriously, that was my age.
And when you were that age, I feel that I kind of like dipped in and out of writing, my own little bits of fiction from sort of mid to like early to mid 20s. And I look back at the stuff that I did then, and I think, whoa, that's bad. That's really bad. And how naive I was, like at the time, like the thoughts that you have. And when you sort of you hit 40ish, and you think, you've been around and you've traveled, you've done loads of different jobs, and you've moved around a couple of different countries and had a family. You just think, wow, I need a bit of a rest. It's time to document everything I've done.
When I was in my 20s, I bought myself a typewriter, and my parents, who are very practical people, they couldn't understand why I would buy a typewriter. And I was told, you'll never write anything that anybody will ever want to read.
Oh.
But I bought it anyway, and I had the typewriter all set up on this desk. And then I sat down and I realized how ill thought out this plan was, because I didn't have a single clue what to write about. Not one clue. I had nothing. I was just staring at it. So what got me into films really when I was about 8 was I saw King Kong on television, the old original black and white one.
Yeah.
And that made me take an interest in special effects, monster movies, and everything came, everything followed everything else. Yeah, exactly. And one day, I mean, it was only about a week after a fortnight maybe after I'd bought this thing, they showed King Kong on television again. And I would be about 20, 21. And I watched it. And it was a light bulb moment. Why don't I write about films? And I went through a period where I would write these reviews of films that I saw, because film distribution was different then. It would take about 5 years for a film to leave the cinema and come on TV. There was no home video. There was no
Netflix,
internet, no Netflix, no streaming, no nothing. All the stuff that we take for granted today was straight out of the Jetsons, as far as I'm aware. I mean, if any of your students are watching this, kids, imagine no network, no Netflix, no Prime, no nothing. You got to pay to see us film in the cinema.
Yeah, imagine 3 channels, and you have to get up off
3 channel, exactly.
to change them on the TV. You had to physically get up and press the button. Do you remember those?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was our family's remote control.
Yeah.
Robin, change the channel. Robin, turn it down. Anyway, as I started writing these reviews, and I've still got them in these ring binders, and I look at them every so often, and I will lock the door before I get them out because I cringe. There was a columnist for Starburst magazine back then named John Brosnan, and he had kind of a witty style. He was Australian by birth, and he had a style about him which I liked. And he could be acidic. He had a wit about him. He was just, as far as I was concerned, he was the man. So I would try and imitate his style, thinking, you know what, I would love to be the next John Brosnan. And then every so often I'd try my hand at fiction, and I would convince myself that I could be the next Stephen King or the next Rod Serling.
Yeah.
And that was as far as the plan went. I would never show anything that I'd written to anybody, because the words "you'll never write anything that anybody wants to read" were a little bit too much in my mind. And in the end, I kind of figured, and it took me a while to get there, and maybe I was around in my 40s where I dropped the whole notion of being the next anything.
Yeah.
Just be the first Robin Pierce, or be the first Paul Powers. I mean, we don't need to be the next anything, because those people have already been. And I then got self-conscious, because is this good enough? Are people going to point and laugh at me? And as soon as you get over that, the scariest thing you'll ever do as a writer is show your work to somebody else. Okay? Now, to your students, I would say showing your work to you, Paul, as a lecturer, is completely different to showing it to your friends, because you will be professional and constructive, and you will be polite. You'll be supportive. Show it to somebody who will be, and I'm not suggesting that you're not honest, but show it to somebody who will be far more blunt and really isn't that involved with, am I crushing this person's spirit or not? What do you think of this? Well, I think you should have your hands broken to stop you typing, or anything like that, and that's the scariest thing you'll ever do. And as soon as you've done that once, it becomes so much easier. And as soon as you've done that, you lose the self-consciousness, and the real you is behind the keyboard. And then you get working.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, that's profound.
Well, that was my journey anyway. So, you're at that point where I started, and you what an adventure. I wouldn't change any aspect of this.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I do feel like Bilbo. Like I'm on the verge, I'm on the doorstep,
Yeah.
packing my bag, and I'm ready to go on to that adventure. But all of the feelings and the emotions that you just described, I can completely relate to.
Yeah.
And I spent from probably maybe 2017, 18 till I don't know, like a few months ago, feeling like um, what are other people going to think of my work? Are they going to like it? Is it good enough? Um, all those kind of like the exact same genuine feelings that you said. Um, the same fears, and I just kind of thought, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? I'm just gonna do it, and that was it. And initially, like you said, I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe I could be the next Joe Rogan. We're both bald. We're both, he started at a similar age. Oh yeah, I could be the next Joe Rogan. But now I'm just thinking, well, yeah, I'm interested in what he talks about with people, and it'd be great to reach that kind of level. But if I can just spend time focusing on what I love, that I feel like that's gonna fulfill me. Like it's gonna fulfill my spare time. Obviously, I get a lot of fulfillment from my family. I really enjoy my work as well. But I feel like instead of just being an observer or sort of a consumer of comics and films and technology, I want to be a little bit more involved and review technology and write about films and be a bit more active.
I know exactly what you mean. There's an odd thing. I mean, I've collected books, magazines, all kinds of memorabilia over the years.
I can see
And
loads of it behind you there.
you know, that is not the biggest shelf.
Yeah.
The wall in front of me is covered. There's a wall to the side of me with more books, and there's more above the TV over there. This actually is the study. This is where I write. This is where I do the podcasting, the radio shows with Aex Lewczuk on Siren. This is basically my kind of nerve center. And the garage has been taken over by such storage units of all the DVDs and box sets that don't actually fit in here. But I was collecting all these magazines, and when I first was published in Gorezone magazine, I mean, I've still got runs of the entire run of House of Hammer from the 70s, and I have every single issue of Starburst from the very first one. And when you start getting these copies, these comp copies of the magazines that you're featured in, I had this weird kind of epiphany where I realized I had actually become part of my own collection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so strange.
Yourself.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
was like,
inception.
but I've still got the gore zones and all the starbursts and all the other stuff right here, and it is an amazing feeling. But it's an adventure like no other. But it is kind of a solitary pursuit. But it's that yearning to have such an affinity and an affection for a certain industry that you feel that you want to be a part of it. I mean, for me, I think it began with the reviews on the old typewriter, that I was just doing it because I was getting brain dead from working in an office in the late 70s, early 80s, and wanted something a little bit more stimulating, which I would do in my spare time. And it was a way, because back then, I mean, there weren't what they call these days nerds, geeks, what have you. There was a film buff, and nobody has ever
Yeah.
told me what a buff actually is. So, okay, you watch films and that's about it. Well, I wanted more.
Is it related to like if you have like a nice metallic vase or something and you buff it, it shines.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's how I clean my car, but it's
Yeah.
not. Um, I started collecting the old tie-in paperbacks and stuff like that, but I wanted something more. I wanted something proactive, something that went beyond just the buying of stuff and the storing of stuff. And I think that's why another reason why I started to write. And you get your way into this industry, and it's you become, if you're a film critic, you become kind of a filter between the audience and the film. And in time, people will trust you, and they'll get to know your particular style. And if you are trashing a film, you don't do it without reason. Whatever your thought of a film is, back it up. I mean, I thought I was doing a show earlier on with Aex Lewczuk, and it was the Saturday morning review show with film critic Richard Fitzwilliams. And the last time we did one of these, which was a couple of weeks ago, I said that the worst film I'd seen this year so far was on Netflix, and it was called Beneath. It did everything opposite of the way Spielberg made Jaws, with basically no budget, and they showed this huge rubber fish, and it was just ridiculous. And today, for maybe I loathe myself on the inside just a little bit, but I made myself sit through Thunder Force.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I watched
oh
some. Are you familiar with the Critical Drinker on YouTube? He's also a film reviewer or critic,
yeah,
I think. And I've been waiting because he reviewed Thunder Force a few days ago, about 4 or 5 days ago, and I like to watch the film before I see what he says and
yes,
see if
yeah.
I agree with him or not. So yeah, I'm aware of Thunder
I
Force. I haven't got around to it yet.
I truly loathed that film,
Oh dear.
and
Yeah.
it starts off so well. The first 5 minutes, they set up a scenario that's very much Stanley, Silver Age, a cosmic force hits Earth, and those who have psychopathic tendencies are suddenly endowed with superpowers. But you've got to be genetically disposed to be a psychopath.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, I could buy into this. If this was a comic, I'd read it. Then Melissa McCarthy waddles onto the screen. She's gurning, she's grunting, she's swearing, she's clumsy, she's coarse. And I'm just thinking, nah, I'm out. But it's the other things in the film. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Octavia Spencer is doing something that's so far beneath her talent because she's an awesome actress. I mean, look at Hidden Figures, look at The Shape of Water, look at Ma, and she's in this drivel.
Uh,
And it was
yeah.
written
Marvel is
by
great.
Matheson's husband, who also directed, and he gave a free hand to improv. And it's embarrassing. It's like watching a 3-year-old flail away, and it's like, how many millions did they spend on this rubbish, and how many so much better films could have been made at a fraction of the cost? But
I,
again, my deep loathing had to be reasoned rather than just say, well, this is rubbish, and walk away.
yeah.
And that can be
Yeah.
difficult sometimes.
So who was the director of that one?
It was her husband. Is it Tom Falcone?
Melissa McCarthy's husband.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I wouldn't want to see that ever again. It will never grace the study shelves on disc.
Yeah, because I recently watched Will You Ever Forgive Me? I think it's called, with Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant, um, where she's a writer and she's sort of failing in society and not doing very well. But she comes across an original letter from the 20s or something in a book in the library while she's doing some research, and she figures she can get some money for this letter, and then she, instead of just, she was surprised at how much money this letter was worth when she stole it. She's a complex character in the film, and she decides to start, writing these letters and forging them. And I think, like, when I see a performance like that from Melissa McCarthy, and I see how kind of funny but also annoying she was in Identity Thief or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, I wonder what it is that then makes that same actor go on to do Ghostbusters 2016,
A
and then
film I've
and then
yet to see, and I have no immediate ambitions to see it. See, I think that originally Melissa McCarthy came with kind of a shock factor. But the
yeah,
problem with a shock factor is you can only do it once because then it stops being a shock. And she doesn't seem to have got that memo.
yeah, she was all right in Bridesmaids as well. I think, isn't that where that's where she kind of broke through? I think with
Yeah,
that.
I liked her in Heat, but she was against Sandra Bullock there. And she was second billed, I think. And Sandra Bullock is so talented and so great in what she does that McCarthy couldn't overshadow her.
Yeah, I think
And I
that's
had hoped that Octavia Spencer would manage to tone her down and perhaps elevate the material on this one, but it didn't happen.
maybe, maybe the this is something that I've considered, that maybe these films are not for us. Like Ghostbusters 2016, maybe when you if we were watching it when we were like 8 years old, do you think we would enjoy it more? Maybe,
Possibly,
yeah, that's
possibly.
what I think.
I I was I was 49. No, I wasn't. I was 39 when
Shocking that.
The Phantom Menace came out,
Yeah,
and I took my son to see it, who was 8 at the time. And I was always a little bit wary about the film because we'd seen what happened after. We'd already seen, the trilogy that had followed it.
yeah, yeah,
And I have no real objection to The Phantom Menace other than Jake Lloyd's performance. Lucas is so offhand and uncollaborative as a director. He can't direct kids. Somebody like Spielberg could have coaxed a better performance out of Jake Lloyd.
yeah,
But I walked away, and I was a little bit concerned that after the adventure and the swashbuckling of the Star Wars trilogy, we were now down to politics and trade disputes and blockades. But a story has got to start somewhere, because if you look back at the old Flash Gordon serials of the 1930s, the slowest episode is always the first one where they're setting everything up.
yeah,
And everybody was outraged by the character of Jar Jar Binks. Now, I can understand that because I also found him annoying. But as we were walking out and I was talking to Steve, age 8, he was completely taken by the character of Jar Jar Binks. And that's
yeah,
when it hit me. The whole trade dispute and stuff like that, that was aimed for 39-year-old me. Jar Jar Binks was to bring the 8-year-olds in. So, but I don't know that Melissa McCarthy is like 8-year-old friendly. I
not
don't
not
know
like
that.
Tony.
No, but again, that's another one trick comedian, isn't it? Really, I can only think of 2 Adam Sandler films that I would watch more than once. There's Click, and there is Pixels. Believe it or not, I like Pixels.
Yeah, I really like Pixels. I'm not a massive fan of Click. I can watch Happy Gilmore any time of day. It's something that you can put on and switch off. It's like a great evening film. But have you seen Hidden? Not Hidden. not hidden gems. What's it called? The film that he did recently about when he's the Jewish jeweler, and
No, I
he
haven't seen that one.
I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It'll come to me. But that is an amazing, intense performance that you've never seen Adam Sandler do that before. It's what's it called? It'll come to me later.
I had a similar moment with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I don't really like the Ace Ventura films. There's a lot of his films that I do like. I like Liar Liar. I mean, I think that's really funny. Me, Myself, and Irene, I think that's
Yeah,
really funny.
that's hilarious.
But what really made me take notice of Jim Carrey was The Majestic,
Okay.
a serious film, a feel-good movie of a kind. It reminded me so much that if Frank Capra was alive today, he would have made that film. And Jim Carrey was very much in the mold of a James Stewart kind of character,
Hmm.
the everyman. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's during the McCarthy witch hunt trials,
Okay.
for communism, and Carey's character is a Hollywood writer. He has an accident while he's the under investigation, has a car accident, ends up in this idyllic little sort of middle American Norman Rockwell kind of town with complete memory loss. But he has a startling resemblance to a young man that they lost in the war, and they think it's him come back. And his, father in quote marks is played by Martin Landau. And it's a heartwarming. It's a really, really good film. I would urge you to watch that one. And please let me know what you make of it.
Yeah, I'll look out for that one. And have you seen The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I have.
Yeah, like that's great, Jim Carrey.
It is. It is. It is. Absolutely is. Makes you wonder why he wastes his time from time, on doing some of the other stuff.
Like
But,
I don't know if you recently saw Sonic. He's quite good in that. Normally I don't really go near films like that, but we got like a free Now TV pass, and we thought, oh, well, let's check this out. And we watched Sonic, myself and my wife, a couple of weeks ago, and really surprised at actually how good it was and how manic, like, and sort of the presence that Jim Carrey's got as Dr. Robotnik. He really brought life to that character.
I haven't seen that one. I think my son has. I'll have to ask Steve about
Yeah,
it. He
yeah.
he might well have it squirreled upstairs, actually.
I
As long as it's not like Thunder Force.
No, I was surprised because I guess it was because I guess I was pleasantly surprised because I had very very low expectations going in. so, so when I came away, I was like, that was good. Like it had a good story, good characters.
I think I was keeping away from it because I had been persuaded by Steve to go and see Detective Pokemon with him.
Okay, were you not a fan of that one?
I never ever got Pokemon. I mean,
No.
it was a big factor of Steve's youth.
Yeah.
But it was no, it's not for me, not for
I've
me.
got I've got a soft spot for that one because I play Pokemon Go every day
Still,
on my phone. Yeah, every day. But I'm not like I think I was just a little bit. I was kind of a little bit too old for the first generation cartoon, so I saw it as the younger brother was watching it. But I didn't play any of the games that maybe your son played.
yeah.
You would have played it on the Game Boy, stuff like that.
He was definitely very much into the TV series, the
Yeah,
animated series.
yeah.
But
I like Pokemon Go because you can't just sit around and play it. You have to
you have to
really
actually walk.
yeah. That's why I do it because you have to walk from place to place. find the Pokemon to catch them. And
Okay, here's a question for you. How did the coronavirus lockdowns affect your Pokemon Go playing?
very badly, yeah, it did. Well, what they what they actually did was they doubled, I think, the area that you could affect.
Yeah,
So you didn't have to walk so close to a thing.
they actually took the
Yeah,
pandemic into account. Wow,
yeah,
I'm really impressed.
yeah. They changed the gameplay. So there's a Pokestop, probably I don't know, 20
Sorry, there's
miles.
a what?
A Pokestop. It's like
You're gonna have to explain that one to me.
so a Pokestop is like it's like a blue circle which indicates that there's a place of interest. Couple of doors down from me, there's a veterinary surgery, and there's these big millstones at the entrance. So somebody has taken a picture of these millstones, and they have like a little piece of history about where they, what they are, where they come from, and that's in the game. And so you walk to that spot, and then you spin the Pokestop, and it gives you Pokeballs and fruit and things that you can use in the gameplay.
Okay.
So from my house, I just can't reach the Pokestops where I work presently. But during the height of the pandemic, when they doubled the area that I could affect, I could quite easily from my house affect more Pokestops without moving,
Yeah.
which was that was quite good. And yeah, it's a great game for getting exercise if nothing else. Like listening to a podcast, walking around and collecting Pokemon. It's something cool to do.
It's how you get us geeks and introverts out of the house.
Yes, yes, definitely. It was amazing actually. Back in 2016 is when I first started playing it with some friends of mine. I was living up in Blackpool at the time, and I went out with my friend Matt Hughes. He was really into it, and he said, "Oh yeah, let's go and we'll drive to Fleetwood Golf Course. I've heard on this forum there's some Charizards there. Like we'll go and get them." And I'm like, "But Matt, it's half midnight, mate. Should we not do something else?" No, no, let's go. So we drive to the golf course, and I'm like, "Dude, we're gonna get arrested. Like we can't get onto this golf course." He's like, "No, no, it'll be fine." We pull up, we park up, and there's like 20 other cars, all
Oh,
full of people, and there's loads of people, and then you just have like 40 people between the age of 20 and 40 all running on this golf course in the middle of the night going, "It's over there, it's over there," like running. And the brilliant thing about that was the camaraderie and like coming together and finding people with a
yeah.
common geeky interest. And because when you're out hunting that late at night, I saw amazing wildlife. I saw hedgehogs and frogs everywhere. The things that you wouldn't see during the day. Um, so yeah, those were the good days back in 2016 when it was at its like absolute peak at its phenomenon. But yeah, I still play it. I still play it because I interact with with the FE and HE students all the time, so
Yeah.
I have to try and relate to them in some way, and they all still play it. That's my excuse.
Well, it's community building, isn't it? This is one of the things that I've missed most about the cinema, because
Yeah,
you'd get something like a Star Wars or a Marvel movie, and there'd be the midnight preview screening,
yeah,
and you'd get the diehard fans in there, and there was tangible excitement before the film started. And I wouldn't have wanted to work in that particular multiplex because there were groups of strangers meeting up, talking to other groups of complete strangers about what they've just seen. And it's very much, a feeling of community. And I think that's something that I'm hoping that we can regain when cinemas reopen, and when we get back to watching our Marvels and our Star Wars and our big tentpole movies that we're all looking forward to.
yeah. I feel like that's something that I'm trying to achieve with this is to find like-minded people to communicate with about things that we're passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main goal of this. So what big tentpole are you looking forward to this year? What are you eager to see?
Oh, what am I eager to see? Oh, um, I actually haven't been watching the release dates that much because until cinemas are open, I have no faith in them. I will be one of the first people to see the Bond movie.
Yeah,
A lot of what I'm looking forward to most has been probably put off until next year. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the next Ghostbusters movie.
yeah,
A very much a guilty pleasure of mine is, but don't tell anybody, the Fast and Furious films. I love the Fast and Furious films
yeah.
because
Me
to
too.
me, the Mission Impossible movies in entertainment value have become what the Bond movies used to be.
Yeah,
And the Fast and Furious movies have now become the Mission Impossible movies.
yeah,
James Bond, as played by Daniel Craig, I've always thought, well, he's not James Bourne, is he? We don't need any realism here. But with the Fast and Furious films, they were um, hijacking VHSs and street
yeah.
racing illegally, and now they're out running nuclear submarines on the polar ice cap.
I'm I'm sure, like in the most recent trailer, I'm sure I saw them head for space, and I'm fingers crossed it's like a Roger Moore Moonmaker like style thing happening. I can
I've
picture
seen
it.
the one where they fly a car off a cliff and shoot some sort of harpoon thing, to make sure it gets over this, mile wide ravine or whatever. It's just pure
It's
fun.
yeah, it's
Um,
absolutely bonkers. I'm really looking forward to it. And I kind of, I was really surprised again at the Hobbs and Shaw. I knew that it was very popular. Like the box office was massive. I waited and I saw it only a couple of months ago, and I was like, where is this film going? It's just one
yeah,
major, massive thing after the next. I thought,
and
oh
as
god,
soon as it's finished, you're wiped out.
yeah.
I need to take a nap after that film.
I need a protein shake.
Other things I'm looking forward to the next Spider-Man film.
Okay, yeah,
Hopefully with J. Jonah Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. I'm looking forward to The Batman with Robert Pattinson, even though I'm not that big a fan of his. I want to see where this
yeah,
goes. Looking forward to The Flashpoint, especially now that a 30 years later Michael Keaton Batman has been added to it.
that's going to be
Um,
amazing. I
there's
hope he has
so many films I'm dying to see.
yeah, I hope he has a decent sized part in that because
Apparently, he does.
yeah,
I'm sorry that the trench isn't being made by DC because I would have enjoyed seeing that, but I am looking forward to seeing Aquaman 2.
yeah,
I don't really care where it goes, but I really loved the first one. I loved the visuals, and people are saying, "Oh, too much CGI." Well, yeah,
I,
it is
I
based on a
didn't
comic book. It's not a
yeah
documentary.
yeah I didn't actually think that I didn't feel that Aquaman was weighed down by the CGI at all. That never
No, I
crossed my
didn't.
mind.
What a
I
what a musical score!
Yeah, and I really like the bad guy, like the helmet that
Oh
that
yeah,
goes
yeah,
around
yeah.
his head.
The
I
mantis.
thought, yeah, the mantis. I was like,
I
that
didn't
looks
think that they'd
amazing.
actually go with the comic book costume for him because it looks
Yeah,
so absurd. But yet, it looked quite good in real life because that was my main thing about Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. They had the Green Goblin as the villain, and to me, he looked like a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger
yeah,
villain. But
yeah,
then again, can you make a villain look threatening if he's wearing green tights, a purple floppy hat, and pixie boots? That'd be a
yeah.
tough one to call.
Yeah, you'd have to be. You'd probably have to be sort of too overly grotesque, not
Yeah.
marketable to kids. So yeah, that would
But
be
then I
my
never really forgave them for the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where we saw Electro and he didn't have the costume, the mask with the lightning bolts. Come on, that's high
oh
fashion for supervillainy.
yeah. I think it's because that version of Electro was the Ultimate Universe version.
Yeah.
So there's yeah, he wasn't the
But I was
original.
brought up on Steve Ditko, and
Yeah,
I always thought that the best dressed supervillains of them all, Marvel, DC, of them all, were Electro and Mysterio. So when
yeah,
Spider-Man Far From Home came out, I was absolutely delighted that they had more or less kept Mysterio's costume intact as it was in the comics, apart from the fact that he didn't have smoke coming out of his boots.
yeah. That was the costume for that was really good.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of this is weird for me because historically like the biggest Spider-Man fan, and I don't know what it was. I think maybe because I didn't go get the opportunity to go and see it at the cinema, or I didn't have my friends around, because of COVID. So
Yeah.
I didn't have that same sort of buzz, but I had to watch that one a couple of times just to kind of like it and to fall in love with it. I don't know what it was. Maybe my expectations were too high, or I expected something a bit different. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one, and
Yeah.
also the the Black Widow as well.
Oh yes, I enjoyed the latest trailer of that very, very much. It looked like Marvel were going to come back post-pandemic with kind of a muted film that wasn't as good as what we normally get. But
Yeah,
no, this could well knock it out of the park.
yeah, I had that feeling after Endgame. It was almost like a Marvel, out breath, like an exhalation of,
Yeah,
oh, okay, so let's take a break
anything
from
else will be
Marvel.
underwhelming.
Yeah, but after like taking in One Division, which I thought was amazing, like from start to finish. And I know it's got its critics. It's not everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. But then after seeing Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm ready. I'm raring to go again. I'm ready for the next phase of the Marvel universe.
Same. I think that that's what they were designed to do, is to basically keep the fires burning. And One Division had the sense of, no pun intended, but if you think it's a good one, I intended it, the sense of wonder about it.
Yeah,
And, you know, the fact that they brought in Harkness, who was by any means, as far as I'm aware, a minor villain. I mean, wasn't she originally the nanny for the kid of Sue and Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four, then
right.
turned out to be a witch or something? And they did that. Then she got the comic book costume in the Halloween episode, and then a proper
Which was
costume at the
great.
end. And
Yeah.
when we last left her, she was basically being trained by Doctor Strange,
Mm.
because she was in that pose, levitating and all the sort of magical circles coming out of her fingers. And I was thinking, where can we go with Falcon and Winter Soldier? And I've watched all of that. And whereas you get the well thought out, where on earth are we going with this aspect of fantasy with One Division, you get the shield like action and the gaping plot holes, uh, which is plot threads, I'm sorry, which are still dangling at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which will be, I believe, addressed in a film rather than another series. So that
Right.
brings them in and makes them part of the overall
Mm.
um, universe that they've created, rather than just being a chief spin-off, which unfortunately what Agents of Shields became.
Mm.
So I thought it would tie in a bit more with what they were doing rather than become its own thing. And, you know, every so often have some, oh, do you remember when Thor came to Earth? Yeah. Okay, then let's go. You know, it just
Yeah,
became a
yeah.
throwaway thing.
I think Agents of Shield, it kind of became very reminiscent of the A Team for me. You know, it
It
was
became
we kind of wanted.
reminiscent of the A Team, but I wanted it to become more reminiscent of the Man from Uncle.
Okay, it was just kind of you know, once they got on the Quinjet, they had their base and they would go from place to place, sorting out the mission, and
Yeah,
yeah,
and you know the big sort of hover carrier would be up above. They would have flying cars. They would have the jet packs. They'd be against AIM and Hydra, and you know, I just thought it would be like a running battle. And I think this is one of the things that I tend to dislike a little bit about TV these days is that the series that we get, like Arrow, Flash, they become season long arcs. And if you don't like the story at the beginning, you know, basically, tough luck, pal. You have another 20 weeks of this. And I, I the Flash especially annoys me because I watched about the first 4 or 5 seasons, and in the end, you know, how can they make a series about the fastest man alive into the slowest moving television series currently on television, which frequently becomes the Barry and Iris glower hour, where they just look daggers at each other because they've misunderstood, and then you know they need a hug. You know, they never needed hugs in the comic book, did they? Or did I just
I
miss those issues?
I used to watch the original Flash. Was it in the 80s or early
That would
90s?
be 1992 with John Wesley Shipp.
Yeah, I used to watch that when I was a kid, and I used
That
to
was
really enjoy that.
fantastic. That
Yeah,
was the Flash.
and the suit and everything was amazing. So yeah, I used to really enjoy that one. But with the Arrowverse and the DC stuff, because they go and they put them on Sky or different channels, they become inaccessible.
You can't watch the whole thing. I've found
Yeah.
that there are 2 series which have a great deal of appeal to me. Stargirl.
Okay. Yeah.
Imagine if I was going to pitch Stargirl to you, I'd say imagine Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but with superheroes
Mm.
and frequent references to the Justice Society of America. And the other one, which I've only just finished watching the first season of a couple of days ago, was Black Lightning.
Yeah.
And
You
they don't
mentioned
play
Stargirl.
into the other series. And it's eerie to me that the first season of Black Lightning, I mean, they do cover a lot of current issues like Black Lives Matter, police brutality, inequality, and the stuff that we see on the news. But a lot of what they were touching upon in the first season, which was filmed 3, 4 years ago, actually foresaw a lot of what we saw in America last summer after the death of George Floyd. And it was just stunning to watch it as a piece of fiction, accurately portraying the kind of attitudes and things that were going on at that time. It's as a white person, it certainly was an eye opener to me.
Yeah. And probably a white British person as well,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I feel like maybe those those experiences and those
Well, let's go all the way.
yeah
White, British, straight, male.
yeah European
Yeah, yeah.
yeah you
I mean,
probably
I'm probably a minority these days.
yeah
Oh, and of a certain age as well.
yesterday yesterday on LinkedIn I was I didn't really do anything, but I was accused of being a white supremacist with who was mansplaining to people, and I really wasn't. All I did was somebody was talking about this new law in New Zealand where they're going to give in the unfortunate event that a couple miscarries, they're going to pay, they're going to help support their couple financially, and they've written it into law. So that's what the post was about. And then some lady from the Philippines was, had some sort of strong opinion about how New Zealand wasn't the first in the world, and we've had this for 10 years, and so on and so forth. And then she made a comment about how feminism needs to be, or like the modern world is not just the West, not just the white West, and she was kind of bigoted and racist against white people. That is a thing, folks. Like, it does exist. I'm not just a fragile white male. Like, it is a thing. It can happen. And so I just went on the internet and got the definition of feminism, and where the origin of feminism came from, and I just simply posted the facts like that. That was all I did. I just copied and pasted it from a website, and then I was a white supremacist with a massive ego, and a mansplainer, and yeah, it shocks me, but luckily, we've got people out there like Gad Saad. I don't know if you're familiar with Gad Saad and his work, or Jordan Peterson. They see this sort of new progressive front, or these sort of attacks on Western modern culture, and white males, and demasculization of males in particular, for what it is. It's simply gross. So I don't know how we got onto that, but yeah. So
we live in strange times.
we do, yeah, we do. How did we get onto that? We were talking about.
Somehow we got onto it from the DC Arrowverse,
from Black Lightning.
Yeah.
So I was saying, we won't have any sort of inkling about what it's like to live, an American culture, never mind like an African American culture, or their experiences. It can't be easy. We've only got a snapshot of those people's shared history.
And whenever you watch the news, I mean, what people forget about the news is how emotively written it is.
Yeah.
Using trigger words to basically control, or at least nudge your thinking towards a certain opinion. And how, at the end of the day, the way the news reported, it's not just straight facts most of the time, heavily tinged and contaminated with opinion.
I
So
think
the purpose of the news is not to inform you, but to tell you what you should be thinking. It's to give you your opinion.
Yeah, but I think also nowadays what their main aim is to grab attention.
Yeah.
Because people's attentions are on all sorts of myriad of different things.
Well, that's the main problem with a 24-hour news cycle, because news that would basically have made, a couple of seconds when you, or certainly I was a kid with 3 channels, and your 5 o'clock news and your 10 o'clock news, now becomes really hammered into the ground. For example, Prince Philip, when he passed away. Now, the news story was he had passed away. Did we really need live cameras outside Buckingham Palace because he had passed away? There was no more to add to it. Do you understand what? Do you know what I mean? You'll get something like a terrorist attack, and the news crews are there instantly, and the terrorist attack has passed, but 24 hours later, the news crews are still there. It has finished. There's nothing more to see here. It's as if they're waiting for something else to happen when clearly it's not going to. And it's the constant need to fill 24 hours with news that is worse, because bad news grabs headlines, good news never does, with worse, more sensational news than any competing channel, because that's where the ratings are.
Yeah, there was on Netflix. There was a documentary about social media and news, about how. Did you catch that? I can't remember what it was called.
I've seen the one about Facebook and how
Yeah.
their algorithms control various aspects, and how they basically keep you hungry and keep you scrolling. Was that the one?
Yeah, and yeah, that's the one. And they also they monitor, you know, um, not just when you're on Facebook, but the cookies and the tracking cookies and the the technologies and the code and the APIs. They monitor your movement and build up a complete picture of um, not just that one browsing session or that browsing session, you know, or a week's browsing session, but the lifetime browsing session based on your email, your IP address,
Yeah.
everything that's linked to you to build up this image of who you are, your sort of digital avatar, as it were. And as you go from web page to web page, or if you have a conversation about pet food or a certain type of car or 3D printing, that is going to pop up in the avatar
It
feed
does.
in
It's actually
in Facebook.
scary,
Yeah,
because I have had instances where I've had a verbal conversation with somebody in this room where my smart speaker is, and adverts for what I've just spoken to but have never searched for online suddenly pop up all over the place.
yeah,
You are being listened to, folks. Don't listen to Karen telling you not to get your COVID jab because Bill Gates put nanoprobes in it. It's all on your social media and your smart devices.
yeah. I mean, don't worry about being tagged like by a vaccine, because this is the tag right here.
Yeah,
They've got you with the IEM number. Um, very few people will leave this at home.
absolutely. Absolutely.
um,
My way of foiling all that is I'll have the phone with me when I go out. But if I'm on foot, I will leave it in the car, because really it's with me just in case the car won't start or anything like that and I need help.
yeah, it's scary when you start thinking about big data and how they use it. Like recently, Google just purchased Fitbit, like the whole company. They bought it all, and I've been a Fitbit customer or consumer for a while now. So it knows that they have a record of my heartbeat at certain times of the day, calorie intake, outgoings, where I walk, how fast I walk, all that kind of
Yeah.
data. And now Google has it,
Yeah.
so they have an even more accurate picture of who I am. I'm not that interested.
Who you are,
They,
what your habits are, yeah,
yeah,
what you like to
where
eat.
where I go.
Yeah.
I get these invites to surveys. There's a little Google survey, and if I nip into town, that's normally when it pops up and it says, "Did you go to Marks and Spencer's today?"
What did you think
And
of it? Yeah.
yeah, did you buy anything when you were there? Did you pay with cash or debit card or credit card? It's like, no, I didn't. Leave me alone. You
Yeah.
can't tempt me with your 5 pence per survey. It's
So you think you go into your car. I have a TomTom in mine, which comes on every time I switch the engine on. And, give it about 30 seconds, and you have been located by 5 or 7 satellites
yeah,
voluntarily. So,
yeah.
They know exactly where I am, how fast I'm traveling. So
Yeah, I always think of Enemy of the State, you know, Gene Hackman
yes,
and Robert De
the
Niro.
Will Smith film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of that, and especially like the way we're the way in which COVID has moved us more towards a cashless society, and then
Yes.
the
Yes.
the oth- the other trend of cryptocurrencies. You know, obviously they've been around for a while now, but they're becoming more and more accepted or more widely known. You know, probably not more widely understood, but definitely if you say cryptocurrency to the average person, they'll have a rough idea. They go, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin." Um, you know, but it's yeah,
Well, my own habits have changed so much during that time because
mm,
I used to go to the bank. I used to get some money out to see me through the week, and that would be that. But of course, then came the dire warnings of don't handle cash. It could be, could get COVID from it and everything like that. And I have two underlying conditions anyway. And I began to think, maybe I'd just better just swipe my debit card. And of course, now because it's all online, they know how much money I spend on what, when. Even
yeah.
more of my habits have become known to the man.
Yeah, like I felt bad before because today I was in town and there was a busker and you know I just kind of I saw him. He's this fantastic looking chap. He's really tall. He must be almost 7 foot. He dresses like he's I don't know what the period would be like the 30s or something. He has this exquisitely massive mustache and he just plays guitar and he sings. He's super well dressed and I like this guy. I see him walk around my park and give him a nod like every now and then. But I had no change to give him anything. I thought
Yeah,
I was like I don't even remember the last time I had any cash on me ever. Like
yeah.
I just don't use it at all. I barely even carry a wallet around. You know, I just it's so weird. Like to think, you know, cash is nice, isn't it? Like to have that. You know, there's
Yeah,
something about
because you
this.
feel that you've actually, if you just swipe a card,
Mm,
psychologically, it's like getting something for nothing, isn't it? Until you get your bank statement.
yeah, yeah. You know, I like that feeling of when I first when I first started out when I was 17, I used to do glass collecting, and then every Wednesday or something, I nip in for the wages, or we get them before the first shift on a Friday for the week before, and you get the little brown envelope, and it's you know it's got the number on it, and it's got the cash inside, and you just think, ah, yeah, I earned that. You know, you get that sense of achievement. It was probably only like 45 quid or something, you know, at the time, but
But it was a fortune at the time, and it was an
yeah,
achievement.
yeah,
In
yeah.
just having a bank transfer of your wages into the, it's so soulless, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it can be. Yeah.
Yeah, it spends just the same.
Yeah. So, how you fix the time? Should we keep going?
Yeah, we can keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So, there's something that I want to talk to you about, which is
Okay.
I put this T-shirt on today.
Yeah,
You can see this.
I see them.
Our,
Yes.
our friend Arnold.
Myself, I'm classically Star Wars today.
Nice, nice. I want to talk to you about Dark Fate and what you thought of Terminator Dark Fate, if you've seen it.
Yeah. Um, I
Are
like.
you a Terminator fan? Like
Yes. Yes. I was there back in '84 watching the first movie. A time when, unless I miss my guess, you would have been about 3 or 4 years old.
About three. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I I love the idea of the Terminator. The fact that robotics is coming to such a peak that we may unwittingly create something that becomes self-aware and becomes so aware that we are actually inferior to it. And they could basically determine that we are little more than bacteria. It's a chilling thought. And I love the way that the Terminator films have gone. Not so much continuity wise, but then again, they're nowhere near as bad for continuity as the X-Men series, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there is a Terminator movie, I will be there to see it, especially if Schwarzenegger himself is involved, and as of course he must be.
Yeah.
I don't really know where they can go with another one though.
Yeah. I think that's I was I was hoping that Genesis would get a sequel.
I was as well, because that seems better placed for a sequel. But it was nice to see Sarah Connor back again.
Yeah. I really like Genesis, and it does get a lot of flack, and her performance gets a lot of flack as well, or not her performance as such, but more her physicality.
Yeah.
They there's people on who've reviewed it online, and they've stated that she just looks like a girl holding like a little girl holding a big gun.
Yeah.
She doesn't have that presence that the original Sarah Connor had, especially in Terminator 2,
Yeah.
because she trained.
And she's still in immense shape in Dark Fate.
Yeah, yeah, and she was intense as well. But I don't know. For me, um, I'm a lifelong Terminator fan and a massive Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, and I feel like Terminator 1 is just perfect, and Terminator 2
You
is
mean this
great.
guy?
Yeah, and Terminator 3 I didn't really enjoy, but I've come to like appreciate it. Salvation I like because I'm a Christian Bale fan. I think there's a lot about it that's not good.
One of
But
these
what it
days, I'm going to go through them all in order and do like
yeah
one a week.
yeah
I don't remember that much about Salvation. I have seen it. In fact, I've got it here. But I don't remember that much about it. I think Terminator 3's problem was, how do you follow Judgment Day? That's such a strong film. How on earth can you ever follow it? I think they had the same problem with Alien 3 following Alien, other than the fact that they were all monks, obviously British, and obviously British people do nothing but swear through every film.
yeah.
Um,
I love Alien 3. It's
to me, it's the
like
weak point.
yeah, really not the fourth one.
Fourth one
Resurrection.
actually helped me through the third.
Right. Okay. I didn't used to like the third one, but there's something about it that I just think like did, reading into the history of it, and despite all of the massive issues that they faced as a production, and the issue with guns, and then changing it was meant to be they were meant to be like monks, weren't they, on a planet,
Yeah,
but then they changed it to a prison, and then that became sort of prison fanatical monks. Like it was, I kind of liked that it was a single alien again,
yeah,
but I do think that they definitely lost something by getting rid of Hicks and Reeves. Definitely.
yeah. See, those sequels, Judgment Day and Aliens, they broke the normal mold where they improved upon the original. Now, Alien and Terminator, absolutely great movies and a must see for any sci fi fan. But they were actually outdone by vastly superior sequels, which leaves the third one in a very, very bad position to start off with, because you're disadvantaged from the titles on. Because okay, with aliens, for example, as soon as we know how bad one alien can be with its acid blood and all this. So they're on the planet where there's a whole hive of them. Dramatically, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
And the same, as soon as you've seen Judgment Day, and Judgment Day has been avoided, it's very, very hard to bring anything back that can actually outdo that. And I thought that in Dark Fate, showing John Connor being killed on a beach as a child was a bold move, and it just absolutely got my attention.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too. I remember I only watched it a couple of months ago with the wife, and we kind of looked at each other and were gobsmacked, and
Yeah,
we looked like we were.
I was like that at the cinema with Steve. Is like, what did they just do?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, what just happened? And
Yeah,
yeah, it is weird. Like I love the idea of you know alternate timelines, alternate dimensions, different
yeah.
pathways, different choices make different outcomes. Um, but for that to for the same sort of system to pop up in two different timelines to affect one character in two different ways just seemed. I just would have liked the main bad guy to be Skynet again. I didn't feel like it needed a new name, or because the robots were so similar anyway in a lot of ways. Although they seem more technically advanced than what Skynet was.
I I kind of assumed, or I could have made it up myself, that time is fluid, but there are certain pinch points that happen in every possibility. And, you know, the Terminators are always going to be there in the future. How we get to them being there
Mm.
will remain kind of consistent, but slightly different.
Yeah.
And that's how I took, well, what I took away from it anyway.
So the film is yeah. So the message of the film is that this thing is always going to happen.
Yeah, it's
It,
inevitable.
yeah.
At this stage now, I would say it's inevitable.
Yeah. What in real life, like as a you know, thinking about quantum computing and AI and the march of technology and the constant progression towards something,
Well,
as a
let me
human
put it to you
race.
this way. I own a drone,
Yeah.
and it's not one of the big, several £1,000 ones. It's about a 400-500 pound one, and it's only about sort of 6 inches long, and it's got a HD camera on it, which is linked to my phone. Now, there's a setting on this thing where I can set it to track a moving object.
Okay.
So I live out in the countryside, and we were trying this thing out, field opposite the house, and it was set to track Steve to see if he could avoid it. And well, he did avoid it by jumping down a hay bale because he couldn't see him anymore. But if you think, right, a relatively cheap drone can be set to track a human being,
Yeah.
and that's purely for entertainment, fun, recreation. What have the military got then?
Yeah.
Because the very existence of that drone with its tracking capabilities itself would have been science fiction 20 years ago.
Yeah. Definitely.
And the fact that it can take HD. I mean, there's no wobble to it because the camera's on a gimbal, and it's
In
scary what we have these days.
in the sort of mid 90s, the mobile phone, the smartphone would have been science fiction as well.
Well, let's take Star Trek.
Yeah.
On Star Trek, they had the communicators, which were like the flip phones. Fantastic. For everything else, they needed the tricorder. Your smartphone can do everything that the tricorder used to do on Star Trek. I had a mild flirtation with a Spectrum computer back in the 1980s. And it was the first time I'd ever gone on a computer, had anything to do with it. And frankly, I was disappointed because my sort of in my mid-20s, my vision of a computer was basically what they had on Star Trek, the library computer. And of course, the Spectrum would only ever keep what you put into it. You could make lists with it. I actually used it more to play Asteroids and Space Invaders. And I was a little bit disappointed. Later on, this thing called the internet came along, and computers had caught up with what I, as a Trekkie, wanted it to be, where I could fire off a question and it would answer me. It would give me all the information I needed. Now we've got these smartphones. They will tell you exactly where you are, how to get to where you want to be. You can essentially call up the sum total of man's knowledge accumulated over the past 2021 years on this little device. What do people use it for mainly? To take photographs of themselves and their cats and their food.
Yeah.
This is the state of the human race. We have this fabulous, I can pick up my phone. I can get Star Chat. I can ask it any imaginable question. But this is what most people use it for. It's stunning, isn't it? When you put it like that. I mean, how many, okay, we are doing this podcast right now. We're using between us, when you consider the satellites and everything else that will go to putting this on YouTube and wherever else it may end up, probably
thousands of miles of cable as well between
billions of dollars worth of technology. What do most people use it for? Lolcats. You can't help but be a little bit disappointed.
And memes.
Yeah. Oh, mind you, some of those memes are real zingers.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, the mobile phone has got more technology in it than the first computer that sent people to the moon.
Aha, point of order here, sir.
Oh, here we go.
A digital watch actually has more computing power than any of the computers that sent man to the moon. A digital watch, imagine that. It's crazy. And I think we're spoilt for technology these days. I mean, this is going to age me, right? But coming from a generation that we had black and white TV, I was born in 1960. I'm 61 now. We had originally 2 channels because I predate BBC Two. I could only really watch ITV because BBC had very poor signal in our area. So I wasn't a big Doctor Who fan or anything like that because we could barely see it. But I was raised on Irwin Allen, Lost in Space, Voice of the Bottom of the Sea and stuff like that, Batman. Having to go to the cinema. I mean, we had to wait for films to come out into the provinces. Whereas now, you were lucky. I mean, I predate cassettes, but when cassettes came along, you would record the top 20 on a Sunday night, as long as the DJ didn't speak over the records, the intros and the outros, which they invariably did. But everything is available instantly now. Thanks to the pandemic, we have films that are released worldwide and streaming to your house. I mean, look at things like Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And
King Kong.
yeah, King Kong versus Godzilla, all this stuff comes to you straight to your home for a rather meager subscription. You know, it's a fast moving world, and it's still not quick enough for some people.
Yeah.
I would never ever. I remember being. I was 22 when I bought my first VHS player, because I had this absurd notion of collecting film. I wanted a film collection, because by then I'd heard of a guy called Forrest J. Ackerman. And to me, he had to be the coolest guy walking the earth, because he ran the first monster magazine, Famous Monsters of Filmland. He had numerous friends in Hollywood. Studios would give him things like the original Dracula cape worn by Bela Lugosi. And he had prints of films, and, wow, what a lifestyle. Then VHS came along, and I thought, I could start taping films, which nobody really had thought of. And films were about, blank tapes were about £10 each back then. Now, it doesn't sound a great deal now.
Yeah.
At that time, in full-time work, I earned about £25 a week. So it was an expensive hobby. And, I built up a collection of physical media. But these days, people say that physical media is dead. And I don't think so, because people are finding that the platforms will take some media down and replace it with something else. So you're not always guaranteed of being able to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it. And as a trick that I think is a bad one, really, on behalf of Amazon Prime, is to put say 5 seasons of something on as part of your subscription, but then of course when you get to the final season, it's behind a paywall.
Yeah.
Not fair.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I've been a victim of them also with Seinfeld. I'm just waiting for it to go back on Prime, go back on free. I
yeah.
spent like a year or 6 months, watching it on repeat, and then all of a sudden I have to pay £3 per episode or something. So yeah, it feels
Everything's so revisionist these days. I mean, they can censor and they can cut what they want. I mean, in these politically correct times. But if you've actually bought a film, and this is especially true, I think, of Disney, then you own it, and nobody from the Disney Corporation is going to come into your house and, scratch the bit of your DVD that thing is on. But again, to my original point, about technology moving on so fast. Back in my early 20s, there was one guy in the small town in North Wales where I live who owned a film. It was like the richest guy in town kind of thing. And he owned a copy of The Robe, the old sort of Roman biblical epic. And every generation, he'd bring this into the primary school and we could watch it. And, wow, he had to be rich to own a film, right?
yeah.
And it came on all these stacks of reels. And we were suddenly then in a position where I could have 3 hours worth of film on something the size of a paperback book. I still find that kind of unbelievable. But then, of course, DVD, Blu-ray came along, and you've got an entire movie, a 4-hour movie with extras on something that's about the size of a drinks coaster.
Mm.
And now we're watching films through the telephone line. I would never have believed any of this. It's like I said earlier on, we're living in times when I was a kid, this would be all stuff on the Jetsons.
Yeah. But doesn't that make you wonder what's next? Like what's coming next down the line?
Well,
Is it going to be like surrogates? Where,
downloading something straight into your head.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I've got room for the entire run of Star Trek, Batman, and the Twilight Zone in my head. If I forget some other stuff, you know, birthdays, anniversaries, stuff like that.
But like, have you heard about Neuralink? It's
No, I haven't.
Elon Musk. You might not be surprised. To,
As soon as you said Elon Musk, I stopped being surprised.
Yeah, Elon put this company together called Neuralink, and they have the goal of creating an interface between the human brain and the internet and the computer. Because what he said was that the bandwidth, the speed of your
Yeah.
thumbs is too slow, like to keep up with the rate of information, because you have to rely on your thumbs to scroll and type and do all this stuff. So he's trying to cut out the physicality of it, where you can control everything straight up with this link that goes into your brain, into certain, connects via super minuscule wires going into neurons, and your brain fires the wires, and then it sends a signal via Wi-Fi to the computer. And this week or a few days ago, within the last 7 days, they had a breakthrough demonstration with a monkey.
I've seen that. I have seen that. Yes.
Where the monkey was able to play Pong.
Yeah.
Using his mind. Yeah, that's the Neuralink project. So that throws up loads of different ethical questions. Say 30 years from now, loads of people have got this implant. Say it's kind of a non-intrusive surgery, or minimally intrusive, and it's affordable, and everybody can have it. And then you have a hacker that can hack in to the signal, and these things, they're not all one way. Like, it's going to be an input output device. It's going to be IO, isn't it? So just like your eyeballs and your ears and your senses, smell and touch and taste and everything are all input, and then your mouth and what you write, what you say, and everything, what you produce via art is your output. If you've got this extra portal that is no longer, your brain is no longer shut off from the world, like somebody else can get in there.
Your brain can be hacked, because that way your brain is no longer exclusively your own. How long before they start putting adverts in there?
Yeah. Resistance is futile.
It is like the Borg Queen, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really
what would happen? What would happen with an electromagnetic pulse? Would we all suffer strokes?
Not sure. But, would it make you more conductive to lightning? Like if you're out and about, like environmental factors, would you become...
just thinking that they've often said that the next world war will not be fought with missiles and bullets and people dying on battlefields. It'll be a cyber war. So if we've got implants and there was an electromagnetic pulse, what a clean victory that would be, because none of the buildings would be destroyed. And the entire, the population would be incapacitated, possibly, at the touch of a button. Now, there's a scary thought.
Could be, yeah. I haven't read fully into how the mechanism works. Like what sort of what powers it? Because an EMP would definitely stop something that's powered up with a battery or into the mains.
It would fry the electrics.
Yeah.
I'm off this idea now.
There was I was doing research. I did a master's degree in computing in 2017 at Edgehill University, and we were doing bioinformatics and security. And I was doing my research, and there was a story that was presented to us by the lecturer there about one of the pioneers of bioinformatics or biosecurity. And it was a guy who was so bored of opening the doors to his building that he put an implant, an RFID chip in his hand. And he just set the security systems up so that when he just walked up, he just waved it and it unlocked the door for him and it opened the door.
How grandiose.
I think we're not far from that now. I mean,
No.
you can do that with your phone. They've all got the NFC technology in there. We pay
Yeah.
for things. It's the same sort of thing. You can get these locks on your door from Amazon, where this is an idea that I think it hasn't taken off, and if you bear with me, you'll see why. There was an idea that Amazon had about these locks that would link to a doorbell, and then the Amazon delivery guy would come with your shopping, and whatever you've ordered. If it's too big, and he would receive a code or an RFID signal, like a one-time use thing, and he just flashes it over the doorbell, and then the door opens, and then he just pop your stuff inside and close the door behind it. So I think they had some issues with that, because obviously you've got to be a certain kind of person to want to let strangers let themselves into your house.
Extremely trusting for one.
Yeah.
It's one of these ideas that, sounds good, but maybe not in practice.
No. Yeah, it depends on your neighborhood, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you live in a gated community, then you might be okay. Or
I think we'd be okay with it here because I live on a private lane where there are only about 6 other houses. But would I be feeling the same if I was, right in the middle of, London, Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, New York?
We all have a serious distrust of the other, don't we? It might be that the people who are dropping the stuff off are completely trained and vetted and everything like that. They wouldn't do anything nefarious.
Well, they couldn't, because they could be so easily traced, couldn't they?
Yeah. There's also the possibility that say they don't pull the door too quite tight enough, or they're not familiar with the sort of minutiae of your mechanism, and then somebody else gets in. Who's to blame?
Another question is, okay, so they can gain access to your house. What would your dog think of all this?
Yeah, if you've got a dog, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Have you got a dog?
Yeah, we have a border collie.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we want a dog, but we just got the new baby, so we're going to wait a little while.
Yeah.
Before we get one, but yeah, I'd like a dog. That's not. I mean, you don't need Pokemon Go now. Now that you've told me you've got a dog.
She is my exercise regime.
Yeah.
She takes me out for walks several times a day, and I think I'm probably going to have to take her out pretty soon.
Yeah. Should we wrap it up, or?
By all means, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's been it's been great. We can if I don't know if you're free, like another time later next week, maybe next weekend or something.
I will let you know, because I was kind of hoping that we could leave this with a, as they said in the movie serials, to be continued.
Yeah. ...
Yeah.
that
Yeah, but I'm always happy to talk to you.
Yeah, that happened with Flash Gordon, but we're still waiting.
Yes. And I think we'll be waiting a lot longer too.
Awesome. Right. So thanks very much, Robin Pierce.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna stop the recording now.